welcome back to another episode with the Crime and Coffee Couple. My name's Allison.
And my name's Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, baby girl, how's my sweet little darling?
I am excited to be back. You guys may not have noticed, but we have not recorded in several weeks because we just got back from vacation. So I'm glad to be back in these chairs.
In the saddle.
Sitting beside my life partner.
Your cowboy. I don't know why I'm doing a lot of Western.
You are definitely not a cowboy.
No, definitely not. I'm probably the furthest thing from a cowboy.
You said you've been on a horse, like once, and it was biting you?
It was like 4 or 5 times, different horses. Every time I get on a horse, they bite me. They reach back and bite me right in the shins. I'm guessing because I'm so fat and big, so I wouldn't want me on somebody's back either. And so I'm doing all horses a favor and never riding a horse again. I know we have some followers and some patrons that, are horse riders and horse owners. I don't know what I did wrong to these horses. I love animals. I love them all equally, and I just think they're beautiful animals. They scare the living crap out of me, I'll tell you that much. They are so big and strong. Like if a horse just wants to buck you off, it can. If you fall off or whatever, I mean, you're kind of high up, like you're going to break something most likely. And these things, you see the muscles on these things are gigantic.
They're strong.
Oh my gosh. But I don't mean to get too off course, but I'm not a cowboy.
I want to say something. You said something funny yesterday when we were at the Cheesecake Factory. Our kids go back to school this week, and every year before they go to school, we go to the mall, let them pick whatever they need, if they need new shirts or shoes, whatever. And then we go to the Cheesecake Factory. So some of us were ordering off of the Skinnylicious menu, and then you have to say what you said to the waitress.
I think you know what's coming from this one. So all of them, I think all three, you and our son and our daughter, were all ordering off the Skinnylicious, looking at their calories. And I was like, well, I'm going to go ahead and order the chicken piccata off the Fattylicious menu. And I looked at the waitress and she didn't even make a smile. And I was like, oh man, that was okay. Like it wasn't the best joke ever, but it was maybe she felt bad because I am fat. And
stop it.
It's like one of those things, like you're not going to be like, oh, get out of here. But it's like, like that, like you just did. But she looked at me like, oh yeah, you are kind of Fattylicious.
Well, you tickled my fancy and I laughed.
And that's all that matters. So did I see, and that's our son, we were buying some shoes. He wanted these Jordan shoes. They weren't Air Jordans like your typical ones. They're like skater shoes almost. They look like Vans, but they're Jordan brand. So it's like, okay, cool. And they were on sale, so we got them. And so we go up to the counter, and the logo's different. It looks like Jordan is like 2 different things, like Jordan. And I'm like, I know Jordan shoes. Yeah, I'm from Chicago. So she picked them up, and I was like, ooh, Jordan. That's different. And then she starts laughing, like kind of making fun of me, which I get. That's what I was going for. And I look at our son. He's just devastated, just like, oh my God, get me out of here. They're
in that age where anything we do or say is just an embarrassment to them. Yeah. And we're told what we can and can't comment on their Instagram posts.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
We cannot comment on the Crime and Coffee couples platform on theirs. He's like, I do not want to be associated with that.
It's like, oh yeah, God forbid you're associated with a couple that loves each other and is doing something that they enjoy together and getting word out about these terrible crimes and atrocities. So maybe it doesn't happen to other people. Yeah, God forbid. So hard.
I'm so sorry we exist.
Yeah, geez. So you think as a kid, be like, oh yeah, support my parents' journey to tell your parents. No, that's not happening. That's just please buy me shoes and please don't look at me.
But we're back from vacation. We're back to reality. We're making our own coffee. We're doing our own dishes. We're making our own bed.
It's heresy.
What the heck is that all about?
That's always your thing when we go on a cruise. You're like, I can't just put a dish down on a table and it gets taken care of. It's this is on me.
I have to say, I feel very weird about that. When people do things for me, I feel very weird.
You know why? Because you don't feel that you're better than other people.
Never, ever.
That's the right way to feel. It's we're not any better than anybody else. I know that's their jobs, on the ship at this point, but it's just, you're not like a slave. I mean, I guess they're kind of paid slave wages. That's a whole different ballgame.
We were talking to some of the staff on the ship. They're just the nicest people. And man, their hours are just atrocious. The one guy was from Indonesia and he's like, yeah, I work, I think it's 7 days a week. They're on for 8 months, off for 3 months. I'm like, oh my gosh, you are just amazing. I give mad props to you.
This one worker, I ordered Allison a tonic and lime, and that was just one time. And the next day I come to him and he's like, oh, Mike, tonic and lime. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is crazy. I can barely remember what my wife says to me on a true crime podcast 30 seconds ago, let alone a drink from yesterday from some random dude. So
not to mention our coffee lady had to correct you almost every morning. She knew my coffee more than Mike did.
And you wouldn't know because I was the only one there, but I told you, I was like, yeah, I went there and so Allison's got, as you guys know, Allison, she's very, very particular. A lot of
high
things.
Maintenance. Yeah. Some might say.
I didn't want to say it, but thank you for admitting. So I go to her order was a large latte with an extra shot of espresso with only one pump of caramel and oat milk. So like there's a lot of differentiation. So I would forget one of those things at some point, almost every order, like 2 or 3 times out of the 8-day cruise. And the lady was like, "Oh, you want oat milk, right?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, thank you so much for remembering." And she's like, "Oh, only one pump of caramel, right?" Because I'm just like with caramel, because I remember that all these things are just like, "Oh, okay, just one pump of caramel, whatever." And yeah, I might be a little brain dead. So everybody listening to this be like, "Mike, you should get checked out." And I definitely should. So, but yeah, these people are very hard workers, fantastic people.
But we are glad to be back. You know, as much as vacation's amazing, it's good to be back in our routine.
Right. Yeah, I'm very glad to be back working. I'm winking. If you can see, you're not watching YouTube, I'm just winking.
But we're happy to be back with our listeners. And on that note, I think we should get started.
I think we should.
All right. So this is the murder of Karen Buckley, and this is a case suggestion from Nicola. So thank you so much, Nicola. So in 2015, 24-year-old Karen Buckley, she was an outgoing girl. She had a really strong passion for traveling the world. She loved to experience life. She loved to meet new people, experience new cultures. And that's actually what we were saying while we were on our cruise, was how amazing it is to meet people from different parts of the world, see how they live their lives, what they eat, etc. It's so fascinating to me.
One of our stops was Dominican Republic. We basically hung out with like 2 like Dominican Republic, residents, like for what, 4 or 5 hours, something like that. It was awesome. It was so cool. And they were telling us stuff about, visas and stuff, just, and, getting to know. And like, she's a woman after my own heart. I love traveling, love getting to know cultures.
So she worked as a nurse at Princess Alexandra Hospital. This is in Harlow, Essex, England. This was for a few months. And at that point in time, while she was working as a nurse, she started to think about occupational therapy, because while you're working in the hospital, you're working among other disciplines. And that was something that just caught her attention. So with that decision to go towards that avenue, she decided to relocate to Scotland. And this happened in February of 2015. She did this in order to study for a master's degree in occupational health at Glasgow Caledonian University is the program she enlisted in. And like, I said, she loves to travel. So this is just another opportunity to live somewhere else. So Karen was born in 1991 to parents John and Marion Buckley, and she had 3 brothers. This is Brendan, Kieran, and Damien. She was raised on a farm in Cork, Ireland. So the family was exceptionally close. They were really the center of each other's worlds. And this is despite the fact that, she's going from country to country and traveling. Her family obviously remained the center of her world. So during her teenage years, she worked as a waitress at the Hibernian Hotel in Mallow. And here she earned the nickname, I hope I say this right, Kaylin Gallic. And this is a way to describe her as the ever-smiling Irish girl. So she would work various events that were held at the hotel. This included weddings and, other events. And no matter what was going on in her personal life or what kind of day she was having, Karen was always known to wear a smile on her face. She was always someone that if she noticed a coworker needed an additional set of hands, without being asked, she was there to step in and help. So Karen was a nursing graduate from the University of Limerick, and she told her friends that she just had this love of helping those that were injured or sick. She wanted to be there to improve their quality of life. And it always had been her life's motivation to be there to help other people who were in need. She had a passion for seeing the world. Like I said, she traveled throughout Europe and the Far East. One of her favorite places that she had gone to was Thailand. She went here with her college friends. And it was her goal that once she obtained her master's degree and began working in occupational therapy, she would make this much anticipated trip to Australia, where 2 of her brothers were living, and she would go and visit them. So that was just something that, was in the distance, and she was working with that goal.
It's awesome to have a goal, and especially a trip that you're looking forward to.
So Karen was the youngest of 4 children, and in 2015, Brendan was 32, Kieran was 28, and Damien was 27. So while working as a nurse in England, Karen discovered, like I had said, this interest in occupational therapy, and she decided to change her course, and she realized that with this, she would have to get her master's degree. in order to fulfill this dream. So now she's moved over to Glasgow, Scotland, and she's enrolled in school. And here she was living in an apartment in Garnet Hill with 3 other girls. So she's new to this area, and because of that, she's looking forward to exploring all that it has to offer. And of course, she's young, and this includes nightlife. So she was, going out with friends, as most 20-somethings do.
Sure.
So on Saturday night, April 11th, 2015, Karen was getting ready to go out with her roommates. They were having some drinks while they did their hair and makeup and stuff like that at their flat. And then they headed out to the Sanctuary nightclub on Dumbarton Road. This is only 2 miles away from where she lived. And she arrived at the club with her friends at 11:45 p.m. She looked super cute. She was in an outfit that I would have chosen. She was wearing a black jumpsuit, a black leather jacket, and she had these kick of color with red heels. So after about an hour in the club, Karen told her friends that she was just heading off to use the restroom. And of course, they expected that she'd be back right away. But then 15 minutes went by, and now we're in the early morning hours of Sunday, April 12th. It's about 1 a.m, and she still hadn't come back from the restroom. So her friends that were there with her, they found it odd, and they were starting to question if Karen had left the club. But this would have been totally unlike her. She was not somebody that would have just walked out and not said something, not to mention she had left her jacket sitting at their table. She had taken her purse with her, but the fact that her jacket was there at the table made her friends think, she was not going to be gone for a very long time. But she still hadn't come back as more time continued to go by. So, they thought in their heads at that point that she must have just made a snap decision to go home. So once her roommates were home, now again, that Sunday morning, they realized that Karen wasn't there. So they continued to text and call her. They weren't able to get a hold of her, but they were leaving her messages. So having been in a club for hours that night and having drinks while they were getting ready that evening, obviously they were having some drinks and, there may have been a little tipsiness involved.
Well, that's the whole point.
Yeah. And, she's young. So they thought maybe she met somebody in the club and decided to go home with that.
Yeah. Make
person.
a decision to leave your jacket, whatever. I'll get a new jacket.
Right. Or her friends would see it and bring it with them.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, her friends did say that she was by no means overly intoxicated. And I will tell you that surveillance video proves that she was walking in an orderly fashion. So she was not overly intoxicated at this point in time. So, however, now when she still wasn't home on Monday, Karen's friends and roommates knew something bigger was happening here. This was not like her. She was a very responsible, communicative person. So at this point in time, they made the decision to report their friend missing. So now it's Monday. It's April 13th. This also happens to be Mike's birthday.
Thank you.
So the Scotland police launched a missing person appeal. So it wasn't one of those cases where they thought, well, she's a 20-something girl. She probably met up with somebody and she's out. They told the police, this is not the person that Karen is. Something bigger is going on here. So right away, a big investigation was launched. There wasn't any kind of stall tactics.
Keep on waiting. She might be gone, whatever. Yeah, right away. They jumped in.
So, of course, now her parents, John and Marion, are hearing this concerning, devastating news. They're back in Cork, Ireland, hearing that their daughter in Scotland is missing. So they traveled over to Scotland to be closer to the investigation. Like I said, Karen was an exceptionally responsible person, so everyone was terribly worried from the start. They could only wonder what happened to her as their minds are reeling. Did she get injured? Did somebody take her? Is she in trouble? Is she in pain? Is she scared?
All the worst things going through your brain, hoping for the best and then anticipating the worst.
So when investigators spoke with Karen's friends who were out with her that night, they obviously wanted to repaint a picture of what was going on that night. They indicated that Karen had no other plans for that night. She was going to go home after the club. She was going to get a good night's rest. It was a Saturday night. She had Sunday off. She was going to rest. So an eyewitness from the club told the police that they had seen Karen and she was speaking with a man outside on the night in question in the time frame in question that she had said she was going to go use the restroom. So when CCTV from the club was reviewed, this verified this witness account, and she was seen outside. She was standing there talking to a man, And then she was seen in the footage walking west down Dumbarton Road towards Church Street. So this is in the opposite direction of where her flat is. So with this information, the police made an appeal to the public because they wanted to figure out who was this mystery man that was seen in the footage with Karen.
Well, obviously, he's got a lot to do with this case.
Right, and he's likely the last person to have seen Karen.
Yeah, and maybe ever.
Right. So meanwhile, Karen's parents, they participated in a press conference on Tuesday, and they were making a plea to the public or to whoever might have their daughter that they just wanted her to come home safely. I mean, this is a parent's worst nightmare.
Yep.
So on Tuesday afternoon, a member of the public found Karen's purse. So obviously this is a very disturbing find. And her purse was found in a garbage bin in Dosholm Park, where, near Dorchester Avenue. So this is in the Kelvindale area of Glasgow. This is about 2.5 miles or 4 kilometers from the club, the Sanctuary, where Karen was last seen. So the purse is helping them to start to put the pieces of the puzzle. It's like breadcrumbs. So inside her purse was her cell phone as well as her passport. However, the person who found her purse, at the time they found it, they had no idea that it was tied to a missing persons case. So what they did was they wiped her cell phone of all of its text messages and phone calls.
Oh, man, that sucks. They weren't trying to, I mean, they were probably trying to sell the phone, yeah, obviously, and then be like, oh, man, this is part of a murder. I'm going to look like the murderer now.
Right. So obviously with this, they may have destroyed crucial evidence. So when this person later realized, watching the news, that this purse was very significant.
Well, thank God they came to, because you could always just be like, throw it in a lake and be like, I never found it. But so at least they brought it up.
Yeah, they did. So they contacted investigators later that day to confess that they did find the purse. And, in their defense, it wasn't a garbage can.
Yeah,
so
I wouldn't do the same, but yeah, I get where they were coming from.
Right. So search teams began to comb the area around where Karen's purse was found, as well as the flat on Dorchester Avenue. So this came to find at this point in time, the public didn't know, but they were just hearing that this flat in question was being looked at. And in this flat was a 21-year-old man who he lived here, and he was detained in connection with Karen's disappearance. So they weren't releasing information as to who this person was. Investigators weren't. However, the press being the press, they like to uncover things, and they came to find out who this person was, this 21-year-old man. And this was Alexander Pacteau. So he was the man that was seen in the footage with Karen outside the club on Saturday night/Sunday morning. So Karen would have then climbed into Pacteau's gray Ford Focus. They didn't actually see her getting into the car. They just put the pieces together because they saw the car driving along Dumbarton Road at 1:06 a.m. So then the car could be seen turning onto Kelvin Way, and then it reappeared at the other end of the street 12 minutes, I believe it was 12 minutes and 45 seconds later at 1:18 a.m. So now investigators are left to wonder, what the hell happened in this car for 12 minutes and 45 seconds while it was stopped along the street?
So it was like a 1-block street, basically?
The car turned onto the street, and then it reappeared at the other end 12 minutes later.
So basically a block. So it was spending some time in this area for 12 minutes. What happened?
Exactly. That is the unknown at this point in time. So, of course, police went to Alexander Pacteau's door. They were there on Monday, April 13th. This is about 36 hours after Karen vanished. And in the meantime, a team of 100 detectives were working tirelessly around the clock on this case. And they confirmed that based on CCTV footage, he would have been the last person to have seen Karen alive because there was no further footage of Karen alive and well. So when Pacteau opened his door of his flat, right off the bat, officers are having concerns because there was an overwhelming smell of bleach that hung in the air.
I mean, you're an officer, you see this, you hear it's like, this is the guy. I mean, you already know it's the guy when you're opening the door for the most part. Like 90% of cases, this is the guy. And then you smell bleach.
Absolutely. It's only reaffirming their beliefs that he's done something terrible. So as they made their way further inside his flat, they immediately noticed things that were out of place. The mattress in his bedroom didn't fit the bed frame that it was sitting on. There were also items not normally stored in a bedroom, such as a toolbox, a roll of packing tape, as well as fingernail brushes, like multiple fingernail brushes that you would use to like clean under your nails. He told investigators that Karen had come to his apartment. I think, he's admitting things because he knows he can't get out of it. So he's saying, oh, yeah, she came to my apartment with me, but then she left at 4 a.m. on Sunday morning. He's like, I was going to give her a ride, but she said, nope, I can walk myself. So Pacto was taken down to the Helen Street police station in Govan for questioning. And at this point in time, he's being questioned as a witness. And in the meantime, forensic scientists were moving in to inspect his flat because they need more concrete evidence. Police are certain this man is responsible for whatever happened to Karen, but they need solid evidence.
And they know that he cleaned the place, so they got to look extra hard.
So while he was at the station, his story began to change. And this time, he said that Karen came over, they had a few drinks, and they had consensual sex. But before she left his flat at 4 a.m., she hit her head on his bed frame.
Oh, almost trying to explain some kind of blood that might be found.
So he claimed that this was something he hadn't noticed until later that morning. This is hours after she left, but he saw blood on his bed sheet and he was like, oh, she must have hit her head on my bed frame, but she didn't say anything to me. I didn't even know she was bleeding at the time.
It's a pretty damn hard hit to be able to start bleeding. I mean, I don't care what kind of consensual sex you're having. That's it's pretty hard.
And he didn't say it happened while they were being intimate. It was like maybe she tripped when she was getting her things on or whatever. So Pacto said that when he saw reports on the news that Karen was missing, he admitted he started to panic because he was assuming he was likely the last person to have seen her alive, and there was now blood on his bed sheets. So he was fearful that police were going to think he did something, even though he's saying, I had nothing to do with whatever happened to her. If something happened to her, it happened after she left my flat at 4 a.m. So because of this, he did admit that he had burned some of his clothing as well as his blood-stained mattress. Because, of course, like I said, police noticed that the mattress that was sitting on his box frame or whatever, it didn't fit. So when detectives searched Pacto's pockets that were in his pants that he was wearing at the station, they found 2 keys that belonged to padlocks, as well as a receipt from a store known as Pound Stretcher. And this is a British variety store chain. So with the receipt, they could see in black and white that he had purchased something that's called caustic soda, otherwise known as sodium hydroxide, otherwise known as lye. And this is a highly corrosive alkali. So while he was being questioned at the station, not only was his flat being searched, but investigators were also searching Pacto's Ford Focus because we know that Karen got into this car, they drove down that street, they remained in that car for about 12 minutes on that street. So in the meantime, a special police Scotland cadaver dog who was trained to react to scent and bodies became agitated near the trunk of his car. So after questioning, they're still processing evidence. So he was allowed to be released and he was temporarily staying at a Holiday Inn hotel while the investigation continued. So despite the fact that we know he used bleach in his flat to clean it, the presence of Karen's blood was located in both his bedroom as well as his bathroom. So on Wednesday, April 15th, police felt that they had enough evidence at this point in time to treat him not as a witness, but as a suspect. So Pacto was detained in a Starbucks shortly before 2 p.m. on this Wednesday, April 15th, and he was taken back to the Helen Street police office for additional questioning. So here they found a note that was in his pocket, and it was basically detailing what he had told the officers during his first questioning. So they made the assumption that he was taking notes so that he could remember his lies.
Yeah, of course.
Because I always say, if you're telling a true story, you don't need to take notes.
Right, because it happened.
Right. It's only when you're lying and you need to remember your lies. So an hour after police released a statement that Pacto had been detained, they received a phone call. And this was from a man that had worked with him in the past. and they had illegally sold fireworks at one point in time. And this man wanted police to know that there was a place that they needed to look at because it was a place they used to store their fireworks while they were working, and it was at a farm. It was at High Craigton Farm. Easy for me to say. So he was basically saying, you guys might want to take a look at this place because if he's wanting to hide something, he might do it at this location. Investigators arrived at this farm in question at 3:30 p.m. on Thursday, April 16th. So they had found those receipts in his pocket when he was originally at the station for padlocks. So what they were looking for at the farm was storage units because there were storage units at this farm, and they wanted to look for storage units that had newer looking padlocks on them. So after a few hours of searching, they found a shed, and it had a padlock on it, and there was a blue barrel that was inside. And it was covered with a sheet. It had a bike wheel over it, as well as a paper shredder. So obviously the person who put this blue barrel in the shed wanted to disguise it. So since receipts prove that Pacto had purchased this caustic soda, investigators got in touch with scientists to, figure out what they needed to do, because if they opened this barrel, could they get harmed by the substance?
Right.
So it was deemed that they could open this barrel at 8 p.m. is when they got the go-ahead. So now when they removed the lid of this barrel, they were met with an absolutely horrific sight. They found Karen's naked body, and she was submerged in this chemical solution. The barrel was transferred to Southern General Hospital in Glasgow for an autopsy. And stories like this just break my heart over and over again, because this was this beautiful human being. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend. She was so many things to so many people. And now she's discarded in a blue barrel as if she's a piece of nothing. And that just I can never just get used to that.
She was a nurse, a caretaker, a student, just so many things to so many people. And this guy just decided, tonight's the night. I'm going to take her out of this earth.
And she would have done so much good. She already had done so much good in her life, but she was working in the healthcare field. And I am someone who works in the healthcare field. And when you see a good nurse or a good therapist, it's such a gift to the world, because people are very vulnerable when they're scared and they're sick and they're trusting their care in the hands of other people. And she was the person to be in the healthcare field because she was so nurturing and kind and compassionate. So the medical examiner determined that Karen had suffered multiple soft neck injuries, meaning, strangulation, and about 12 to 13 heavy blows to her head that caused her skull to fracture. And it caused her to have a subdural hematoma, which is bleeding of the brain. It caused her brain to bleed out. That's how severe these injuries were. That's how horribly hard this monster struck a perfect stranger, somebody he met minutes before.
Like, you think you're just going to meet somebody who's nice and potentially like a life partner or just somebody fun for a night or whatever it is, and somebody to spend some time with. And it's like you end up going to their flat and you get beaten to death or wherever they were
it was
when
in
it
the
happened.
car.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But man, that's just we've all done it. We've all talked to random people at random places.
Right.
And this is unfortunately the worst case scenario.
And you're at a club. This is a 24-year-old girl chatting with a 21-year-old guy.
Yeah.
You don't think something like this is going to happen. And, injuries to her body prove that she had fought for her life. She had been murdered within 20 minutes of meeting this man by chance.
Jeez.
She was just in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong monster.
And unknowingly, she didn't do anything wrong.
I mean, this guy was at a club with his friends. What the hell happened?
Can you never leave by yourself with somebody else? You can't bring friends with you if you're going to be, spend some time with somebody privately, right? It's
right.
Oh my gosh.
So a forensic expert was able to match soil samples from Pacto's car to Dosholm Park, where Karen's purse had been discarded, as well as High Craigton Farm, where her remains were found, 8 miles from where she disappeared. Despite the fact that he had cleaned his car and then he took it to Annie's Land Valet for a secondary cleaning, traces of Karen's blood were still found on the passenger side seat because that's where she was sitting when she was attacked. So investigators combed over 1,900 hours of CCTV footage in order to build a case against Pacteau because they needed to prove that the time she drove away in that car was the last moment she was alive. There were no other visions of her on CCTV footage because she died in that car. So this proved that later in the day on Sunday, the same day that Karen went missing, he drove to various supermarkets and DIY stores in the West End to pick up various supplies. He could be seen on surveillance filling his cart with bottles of caustic soda. We know he had the receipts in his pockets. He also purchased a 220-liter blue barrel, plastic gloves, and a mask.
I mean, they got this guy.
Of course.
This is no problem.
He also made trips to High Cregton Farm, where her body was found, on the outskirts of the city. He burned his mattress. He burned clothing. With his third round of questioning, this time, now investigators have solid evidence against this guy. Pacteau yet again changed his story, now for the third time. He said that while they were having consensual sex, Karen hit her head, she got extremely angry with him, and she slapped him in the face. So in retaliation, he began to hit her in the head with a wrench. So as the full details began to emerge, investigators determined that Karen and Pacteau were strangers to one another. They combed through social media. They talked to her friends. They determined that she had never laid eyes on this guy before, but just by chance, they were at the same club that night. So, and just by chance, they bumped into each other outside at about 1 a.m. Earlier that night, he arrived in his car with about 7 friends. So apparently the plan for him was that they were going to take Ubers or whatever kind of ride share to the club. They had been drinking before they went to the club. He had no business driving to the club that night, but apparently he was very antsy and he didn't want to wait for the second car because there were so many of his friends that they had to take 2 cars. So at the last minute, he said, let's just take my car, we'll go. And, you know, that decision probably changed everything because had he gone in a rideshare, he would not have his car there to take Karen.
Right.
So it's just one of those small, tiny details that just are tragic. So he arrived with 7 of his friends to the club. While they were there, they booked a booth for £250. So at the same time that Karen just happened to walk out of the club, Pacteau had told a steward that he was just running outside to grab something from his car. His car was parked about 100 yards from the club. So he walked down the street, he briefly returned to the club, and then he left again. So while he walked up and down the street, this is all seen on CCTV footage, he met Karen, and the two just got to chatting. And it's likely that he probably offered her a ride back to her flat. It was about a 5-minute drive away, and she accepted his offer.
Why was she outside?
They don't really know.
Was she a smoker? Was she having a cigarette?
No.
Just outside. And she was supposed to be going to the bathroom. And she wasn't intoxicated.
She was not overly intoxicated. She had had a few drinks that night.
But it's interesting because her friends are all inside. I'm not trying to blame anything. I'm just trying to
Put
set
the
scene.
picture.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, why would anybody be standing outside just looking around, right? Like the CCTV shows she was kind of hanging out outside of the club.
I'm not really clear on that. If maybe she bumped into him as they were walking out and he encouraged her to walk out. It's unclear because Karen is no longer here.
And you're also at a club. I can see like getting hot and like just stepping outside for a bit. Like that might be the case.
Maybe just to get some fresh air. So we're assuming things at this point because Karen is no longer with us.
And Alexander's a lying monster.
Of course, you can't take anything this guy says for face value. Right. So rather than driving her home, though, he drove to nearby Kelvin Way. And it's unknown what he may have even said to Karen outside of the club because she was a very cautious. She had a good head on her shoulders. Right. So clearly this guy was very convincing. He made her feel at ease. So she willingly got into his car. So once on Kelvin Way, he stopped the car. This happened at 1:06 a.m. There they remained for 12 minutes and 46 seconds. And during this time, he grabbed her by the neck. Based on the injuries on her body, we know this happened in an attempt to choke her before he repeatedly struck her in the head at least a dozen times with a wrench, otherwise known as a spanner. And why he had a wrench just sitting there in his car, I don't know. From here, he began driving in the direction of his own flat. He stopped at Dosholm Park along the way, and here's where he threw her purse into the garbage bin that contained her cell phone as well as her passport. So CCTV proved that Pacto arrived at his first floor flat on Dorchester Avenue at 2 a.m. He went inside, he retrieved a sheet, and he used this sheet to wrap her body before bringing her inside. And even though his mother apparently and his flatmate were home at the time, they were asleep only feet away. Pacto carried Karen's lifeless body through the first floor, and he left her in his bedroom until later that morning. And despite having just brutally beaten an innocent woman to death, he fell asleep in that room with her remains in there with him until about 8 in the morning. So now awake, he quickly got to work because he knew that he needed to dispose of evidence. So he used his phone to research the properties of the corrosive substance caustic soda or sodium hydroxide. He left Karen's body inside of his locked bedroom, and he drove to B&Q Pound Stretcher on Great Western Road, and here's where he purchased 6 liters of caustic soda, at 9:42 in the morning. We see him on CCTV buying these items. He was also seen on CCTV footage buying not only this, but drain unblocking fluid, as well as a mask and gloves. He purchased padlocks from Tesco, Pound Stretcher, and Asda. So once back in his flat, he removed Karen's clothing and he carried her to the bathroom because at this point in time, he was alone in his flat. And he submerged her body into the bathtub that was filled with this corrosive substance that he had purchased. And he left her here for a number of hours. So during this time, he attempted to clean his flat, as well as the outside area, anything that he knew could tie him to this crime. He texted his flatmate, who had gone out hiking or walking with his mom for the day, because he needed to know when his flatmate was coming home. And he told him it was going to be about 8 o'clock. So he knew at this point in time that he was going to be pressed for time. So he decided to use a knife to slice Karen's body from her sternum to her abdomen in hopes of speeding up this process and basically breaking her body down now from the inside out. And I know that is so horrible to hear, but that's what happened. So when he realized that this also didn't work, it's edging on 8 p.m. He knows he needs to, do something. So he was forced to drain the bathtub and remove Karen's body in anticipation of his flatmate returning. So once out of the tub, he wrapped her remains in a duvet and he returned her to his bedroom. And Pacto spent another night with Karen's remains. He woke up early on Monday, April 13th. He disposed of the murder weapon into the 4th and Clyde Canal, and then he went to Tesco on Mayhill Road and asked an employee, "Can you recommend a product for removing blood from a mattress?" I mean, that to me is extremely damning. I don't know if it's because I do a true crime podcast, but I would just assume if someone asked me that question, they murdered someone in their bedroom.
Yeah, there's a good chance.
So after he purchased the suggested cleaning products, he did go home, he scrubbed the mattress, and then he headed out to another Tesco, this time in Milgenville, to buy turpentine, which is otherwise known as white spirit, as well as a lighter. And despite having tried to clean his mattress, because he did, he scrubbed it for more than an hour, he drove with his mattress to High Craigton Farm. And this is a spot he knew because this is where he had stored fireworks in the past. And he burned Karen's clothing as well as the mattress. Anything that she may have come into contact with, he burned. So at 8:34 a.m., he utilized his cell phone to call a packaging company. This is Invopack. And this is where he ordered this large blue barrel. And then he drove to the east end of the city to pick it up. He purchased the additional chemicals from Pound Stretcher. He came back to his flat. He bound Karen's body with an extension cord. He placed packaging tape around her neck, and then he placed her body inside the barrel. And he later filled the barrel with a mixture of caustic soda and water and partially submerged her body. So Pacto was a very large man. He stood at 6'4". He weighed about 210 pounds or 15 stone. While Karen was a smaller girl. She was about 5'4". She was slender. And he was able to carry this barrel with her remains inside to his car. And a neighbor actually recalled seeing him. He was struggling down the stairs of his flat with a large blue barrel. And at the time, she would have never, ever imagined that it contained a human body.
Yeah, if anything, you joke like, "What are you carrying a body there or something?" And like, he has a small car, a Ford Focus.
Right.
I don't know how he got it in there.
So he drove back to the farm. He paid the farmer £10 storage fee for the week, and he left the padlock barrel in an outhouse and padlocked the door of the building. So within moments of him arriving home, now police are knocking on his door of his flat, and he tells them, "Oh, I was just coming to see you." So he may have thought that maybe he covered his tracks, but with the use of CCTV, forensic analysis of his car, as well as his cell phone, thankfully, investigators were quickly able to unveil his lies. So forensic experts found Pacteau's fingerprints in the blue barrel that he filled in an attempt to destroy Karen's remains. Divers were able to recover the wrench that he used to strike Karen in the head.
Wow.
And this was in the murky waters of the canal. And meanwhile, a burned mattress was found at the farm that proved that it was from his bedroom. So after Karen's remains were recovered, her family visited tributes of their daughter, which were held at her university, and they wept. They held each other as they joined hundreds of people on George Square for a vigil. When their daughter's remains were returned to them a little more than a week later, they accompanied her on a special chartered flight back to Cork, Ireland, where thousands and thousands of people gathered to pay their respects to this beautiful human being who had 3 older brothers who carried her casket into the church where Karen grew up. Marion and John were understandably shattered that their daughter's bright future suddenly ended and her life was cut short, while they thanked the people of Scotland for their hard work in the investigation because they did an amazing job.
Oh, how many times do you hear like, I couldn't find anything? Like they didn't even know whether the wrench was in the water or anything.
know.
And they went down there and they found it and they got all the receipts. They found, they connected this guy to absolutely everything they could.
I mean, they put every piece of this puzzle together because they wanted to be sure that this disgusting human being would be sentenced for this crime.
Yeah.
So her parents spoke out. They said, "We are extremely upset that Karen will never have the chance to live out her life, travel more, and pursue her career. That maybe someday she could have a family of her own and enjoy a happy and eventful life, which is what she would have wanted, which is what she would have done because she was such an ambitious girl. She was such an exceptionally amazing person. And the fact that this disgusting human being just saw her as nothing more than something to just beat and discard of it's just shattering."
Yeah. And like as a parent, that's the last thing you ever want on earth is one of your kids to be violently taken from you, much less anyway. Like you'd rather have stage 4 cancer, as a parent than have like your darling daughter taken away from you by some monster.
I mean, a parent's worst nightmares is something happening to their children. It's just something that keeps me up at night. I worry about everything, and that's like my worst nightmare. So in August of 2015, Pacteau appeared at High Court in Glasgow. He admitted to murdering Karen. During his sentencing in September, he claimed that he was remorseful. I don't know if this person has the capabilities of feeling remorse.
Yeah, he's just trying to get a lesser sentence.
But he said that an apology would sound hollow to Karen's family, who were seated on the public benches. He claimed that when he murdered her, he had been extremely intoxicated. He recalled very little about why he even killed her. I'm sorry, I've gone out a million times in my 20s and gotten intoxicated. I never beat anyone with a wrench.
Same.
Like, what the hell is going on inside of this man?
Well, you got to think that he's had other occurrences of things, and I'm sure you would have told us if
I
you did.
will tell you.
Okay, good.
So he recalled that they began to argue, and he became angry about something that she said about the men in the club.
Like, you met her 20 minutes ago. Like, she's not your like wife or anything, but like, it's crazy.
Like, I always say when people are getting so angry at strangers, like, how do you carry so much anger inside of you?
Yeah, like I'm never want to see you again because you're only worse to people you know.
It's bizarre. So Pacteau was given a mandatory life term with a minimum of 23 years.
As we know, in Europe, a mandatory life term is
It's
like
not
20
life.
years. Yeah, it's
I mean,
weird.
23. This is a 20-something-year-old guy. At the time, he was 21. He'd be in his like mid-40s. So it's a minimum of 23 years before he could be considered for parole. He showed zero emotion, if you could believe that. He refused to look in the direction of Karen's family as he was led away in handcuffs because he is a disgusting coward. After his conviction, it emerged that Pacteau was cleared on charges of attempted rape in 2013.
Big surprise.
In a case that was very similar to what happened to Karen. He was accused of attacking a 24-year-old woman when she was on her way home after a night out. And this was something he was acquitted for. This is completely outrageous. So he told the jury that he was gay. So he would have never tried to engage in sexual contact with a female.
What sucks about these situations is there's no evidence and it's he said, she said. So it's like, okay, what are you supposed to do, right? You take the guy's word for it. I don't know. Like it sucks. And then it has to be open until something terrible happens and you can pin him to it.
Well,
it's
unfortunately, something terrible happened.
Yeah.
So, and then in 2014, he was convicted for forging banknotes with 6,000 pounds by scanning paper money and printing out the copies.
So he's a waste of life.
Completely. So despite his dark, violent ways, Pacteau was actually raised in a very loving home, a good family. He had a French father and a Scottish mother and 3 siblings. He went to a prestigious private school in Glasgow. His parents owned a courier company, Priority Courier Service. But then the business collapsed and his parents divorced in 2013. Pacteau at this point in time went to live with his mother. That same year, he was severely injured in a car accident and later moved into a flat in Drumchapel. So he occasionally saw his family and friends, but after this accident, he became increasingly isolated. He would spend days and days just holed up alone in his bedroom, just surfing the internet.
Wow.
He rarely left his flat. He ordered Chinese takeaways, pizza. His weight climbed to nearly 300 pounds or 21 stone. So clearly he was,
Affected.
really depressed at this point.
And like what kind of injuries? Obviously a head injury.
They didn't say anything about a head injury. I know it affected his mobility. He was like wheelchair bound for a bit, used crutches, etc.
Okay.
Although those that did spend time with him, though, described him as a gentle giant. So when he was with people, they said he came across as gentle. They said he was funny and engaging.
Which is probably why Karen chose to take a ride home.
Right, because again, Karen had a great head on her shoulders. So he was clearly someone who was able to mask this horrifically dark side of him. So his earliest release date is 2038, and that's not that far off.
No.
He will only be in his mid-40s if he is released at the earliest possible date, which scares the hell out of me.
Well, this is a perfect example of somebody that absolutely cannot be rehabilitated.
No.
This guy will never be fixed. So you got to, put him down. You got to keep him in jail.
Keep him in jail is what needs to happen.
Sure.
Because if he is able to meet a charming, sweet, lovely girl outside of a club who is a complete stranger to him, and within 20 minutes she's dead in his car, what the hell is he going to be capable of when he's in his mid-40s?
And I mean, I use a term for animals because he's an animal. He's a monster.
a wild animal.
Like if a dog attacked somebody and like killed them, we would put them down. This is the same thing for this human being. He's incapable of being around women and not killing them or hurting them or whatever. So kill this guy. I mean, he's useless, or keep him away from the general public for the rest of his life. And if they don't, I don't know what they're going to do.
Somebody else is going to be hurt is what's going to happen.
100%.
So John Buckley spoke for his wife and his 3 sons. He spoke for his family outside the courtroom, and he said, all Karen was doing was making her way home when she was randomly targeted and murdered by a cowardly, vicious criminal. No words of ours can do justice to our feelings toward him. He is truly evil, and we hope he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Our hearts are broken at the thought of Karen's final moments in this world. The thought of her alone, frightened and struggling for her life haunts us. The last face she saw and the last voice she heard was of that cold-blooded, cowardly murderer who calmly set about trying to dispose of her body so she would never be found. Not only did he rob Karen of her precious life and future, he robbed us of our beautiful daughter and sister. And that is the sad and tragic murder of Karen Buckley.
So incredibly sad. And cases like this come up time and time again where we all know, everybody listens to true crime. You know that this guy's going to get out and do it again because it's wired in his brain that he's a violent, horrible human being. And he's probably has some other issues like bipolar or, multiple personality disorder. It sounds like, because he can be a very charming individual and then all of a sudden murder someone.
I mean, can you imagine the darkness that would come out? It's like Ted Bundy when he he seems so engaging. He's a friggin' monster is what he is.
Yeah, and this guy can turn into a serial killer. I mean, he can learn from his mistakes and be like, well, next time I kill somebody, I won't do this. Like, this guy gets out, he's killing somebody. Right. Or at the very least, harming somebody badly.
And I just think of the Buckleys who, for the rest of their life, will live with a hole, a tremendous gaping hole in their hearts. And to think that this guy might get out in his mid-40s and have a life to live in the world, something that Karen will never be allowed to do, what a slap in the face that would be to her family.
Yeah, and Karen did nothing wrong. She's a young girl trying to meet people, and you're always looking for your mate. You're going out like, oh, maybe I'll meet the guy, whatever, tonight. And she trusted this guy. He was charming enough. Like, you can't go back and be like, I wish she would have done this. Like, what is she supposed to do? Get his ID and show her friends? Be like, I'm going with this individual. If something happens, like, no, that's never going to happen.
That's just not how it works. And again, his friend said, a gentle giant, funny, charming. I mean, gosh, the darkness that lives inside of that man is frightening.
Some of the best nights of our lives are just meeting random people and having a great time with them and never talking to them again.
Very spontaneous.
Yeah,
I always say that, even with our vacations. I'm like, the best days we have on vacation were not really planned.
Yeah, and poor Karen did nothing, absolutely nothing wrong besides being a fantastic, awesome individual, and this scumbag.
You always say we need more Karen Buckleys in this world, or whatever victim that we're talking about.
Unless Alexander Pactow's. We need zero Alexander Pactow's. You're a piece of garbage, and I hope something terrible happens to you in jail.
I just hope he stays in jail for the rest of his life, because what an injustice to the world if he's let out and potentially harms somebody that's living about their lives right now that could be affected down the line if the courts decide to let this monster out.
I hope he accidentally hits his head against a concrete wall several times.
I hope he has nonstop explosive diarrhea all the time.
That's not even close to bad enough. That's not even scratching the surface.
Just soils himself every moment of the day.
I mean, I hope he gets impaled by something, like, it's repeatedly, but stays alive so he can feel pain and like horribleness. So like, I want him to feel the horribleness. So whatever, let's stop talking about him.
But our hearts go out to the Buckley family, because we didn't know Karen, but she sounded like an absolute gift to this world. And I'm so sorry that she's no longer here.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for listening. And it's important to get these stories out, to remember these awesome people that have been taken from us and their families and their friends way, way, way too soon. And Karen was one of those people.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for telling the story. And if you really enjoy what we do, you can support us for free by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Make sure there's 40% of you out there that are not subscribed to us on your podcast platform. So whether you're on Spotify, Apple, any of those, go ahead and just press that plus button and make sure you're subscribed so that you can get the updates next time we come out, because that does a lot for us. It helps amplify the message and all that kind of stuff, gets more of these stories out there, and tell your friends and family and all that good stuff. And as we always say, go ahead on over to Patreon or Apple subscriptions if you'd like an extra weekly bonus episode. We do 2 episodes a week. This one's free. The next one on Wednesdays is going to cost you a couple shekels. What's the big deal? Support this Ma and Pa. I'm Pa.
And I'm Ma.
Yeah, so we'd love to have you over. We're just a tiny little podcast. We're not that huge, gigantic network like the Audio Chucks and this and that and Busy Chupa Teepees. We're just Allison and Mike.
Busy Choopy Cheepy.
Not yet. So yeah, just come on over, support us. We appreciate it. Somebody complained that we talk about this on our free podcast. Yay. I'm sorry.
How dare you promote us, Mike? How dare you?
I'm sorry we're promoting our own podcast and our whatever. There's plenty of podcasts out there. If you don't like us, go find another one. They're all great.
And that's okay. No harm, no foul. But we appreciate you guys for being here. And one other thing, if you could leave us a 5-star review on Apple.
Oh, that'd be great. Or Spotify.
Or Spotify. We don't care, but we appreciate you guys one way or the other. And be safe, be kind to one another. And until next time, bye.